and Jesus was telling his disciples that he's going to be killed. They are going to kill him by talking about these wine growers and how they kill master's only son. And Jewish people, Israel is going to, the leaders of Israel is going to kill Jesus. So that is what we saw yesterday. Now let's look at point number D. Jesus' second confrontation with the Jewish leaders. Remember, first was the Jewish leaders, especially Sanhedrin. Now this is second confrontation with the Jewish leaders and his response to their questions. There are a few people raised the questions. First question was raised from the group of Pharisees and Herodians who had been sent by Sanhedrin. Now, Sanhedrin asked the first question to put Jesus into a trap. They couldn't. Now, Sanhedrin is sending in another people, Pharisees and Herodians, to trap Jesus. And that question was involved tax paying to Caesar. So that's the first question. Second question came from certain Sadducees. And they had the problem of resurrection and afterlife. Right? So Sadducees did not believe in resurrection. The third was put forth by scribe who asked Jesus about the great commandment. So there are three questions have been asked by people, mainly instigated by Sanhedrin, to trap Jesus. First question of paying tax to Caesar. Still seeking opportunities to discredit Jesus in the eyes of people, Sanhedrin sent some Pharisees and Herodians for this controversy. That's what we read in verse 13. Pharisees, we need to understand who are Pharisees. They were religious conservatives, right? They defended the law and traditions. They were conservatives, religious, Jewish conservatives. Herodians actually were supporters of Herod and Roman authority. So those who support Herod and Roman authority are known as Herodians. These two groups were generally what? Antagonist. Why they are antagonist? Because Pharisees don't like Roman authority. Herodians like Roman authority. But on this occasion, they have a common cause and a mutual understanding because they have a common enemy, right? Jesus is the enemy. And in effort to mask their true motives, they began by flattering Jesus, right? Flattering, flatter someone, please someone. And they called Jesus teacher, rabbi, saying that he spoke the truth. You speak truth always, right? Did not defer to anyone, but was impartial to all, and that he accurately taught the ways of God. Yes. They then sprang their trap, asking him whether it was lawful to pay poll tax, that is tribute money, to Caesar. Should we pay tax to Caesar, Roman authority? Their question intentionally placed Jesus on the horns of a dilemma, right? There is not a trilemma, but there is a dilemma. If he said yes, he would provoke the anger of Jews. If Jesus says, yeah, we have to pay tax to Rome, Jewish people will not like Jesus. Tax was highly unpopular, and many Jews refused to pay it because they felt it legitimized Roman rule. They thought if we pay tax, that means we are saying okay for Roman to rule us. If Jesus said no, That would put him at odds with the Roman authorities, who would view such a response as a tantamount to sedition. It is a, crime against the government. Seeing through their fully veiled pretense, Jesus asked them, why were they testing him? Hey, Jesus knew their heart. Jesus knew them. Jesus asked, why do you test me? In other words, what they had said about him was true. Why are they endeavoring to entrap him? If initially they said, you are a teacher, you teach the ways of God, then if they really believed that one, why should they trust Jesus? So Jesus has his own way of explaining, right? He's a master teacher. He directed them to bring him a denarius. Bring a denarius, a coin. The coin used to pay this tax. Bring denarius. When Jesus brought him the coin, Jesus held it up, asked them to tell him whose image was on the coin. Whose image was on the coin? The coin bore stamped image of the emperor. Okay, image was there of the emperor. Tiberius Caesar. His image is there. Still, they find out many coins with the, they discover these coins even now. So the leaders answered, oh, it is Caesar's image here. Jesus then said, you render to Caesar things that belong to Caesar. And to God, things belong to God. Jesus did not stop by, okay, give to Caesar. Jesus said, render things that belongs to Caesar and render things that belongs to God. Jesus had deftly answered their questions so that no one could be offended. The Jewish leaders, aware of this, were amazed at his answer. And I would ask you, if you have a concordance or some kind of things, look for the word amaze in the Gospel of Mark. You will be amazed to see every time Mark has that particular way of telling people. When Jesus did, people were amazed. People were amazed. What kind of man is this? What kind of man is this who teaches with authority? What kind of man is this who forgives sins? What kind of man is this whom even the nature obeys, wind obeys? What kind of man is this? And they're amazed. So this is the first reaction of Jesus to the first trap. Second trap comes from Sadducees. They don't believe in resurrection. Right? These Sadducees don't believe in resurrection. So Jesus is being confronted by this group who are sent by Sanhedrin. Following this, a group of Sadducees took their turn asking Jesus a question again in an effort to entrap him. Sadducees were traditional opponents of Pharisees. So you have Pharisees, right? Then you have Sadducees. Now, they're always opposite to each other. They don't like each other. Now, Sadducees were kinds of liberals in the Jewish community at that time. They were small groups, small party. They have gained control of the priesthood, and they were responsible for the administration of the temple. Who? Sadducees. Sadducees were responsible for the temple. Somewhat liberal in their beliefs, they accepted only Torah, all right, as authoritative. And they rejected the traditions handed down and guarded by Pharisees. So they did not believe all the Hebrew Bible. They believed only, remember, Hebrew Bible is divided into three, right? Torah, Navim, and Ketuvim, right? Ketuvim, 3 divisions. And Torah is the first 5 books. And Ketuvim is the mainly poetic books like Job, Psalms, Proverbs, Song of Solomon, Ecclesiastes, and maybe Lamentations. So Ketuvim is known as, Torah, Torah, this is Pentateuch. Nevim means prophecy. And Ketuvim means writings. So what Ketuvim included mainly these poetic books, and then Navim, or sometimes people call Nevim, includes all the historical books and prophetical books. They looked historical books and prophetical books together, right? So that's a Hebrew Bible. So Sadducees did not believe this too. They believed only Torah. Citing Moses' directive in Deuteronomy chapter 25 involving levirate marriages. What is levirate marriages? What is levirate marriages? In a family, if a husband family, there are parents have got 5 children. For the sake of our explanation, we'll say 5 brothers. Elder brother married a lady, and what happened? The elder brother died. So levirate marriage says that second brother can marry the wife of the eldest brother, right? Relationship marriage, so that they would not lose the possessions and properties and things like that. So that's what levirate marriage is. They said that a man's brother dies childless. Okay, here is their question. Interesting question Sadducees are coming up with. Brother dies without a child. Now, surviving brother was to marry the deceased brother's widow and raise up a posterity for the deceased to perpetuate his name and inheritance. All right? So, in the name of the first brother, the second brother has to marry so that there will be children, and that children also will be the name of the first brother. I mean, in that family, in order to continue the eldest family. Then they presented Jesus a scenario involving family of 7 brothers, right? They're bringing up a hypothetical situation. Hypothetical. Imagine, that's hypothetical. There is a family, there are 7 brothers. The first brother took a wife and died childless. Okay. What is the story? What is the story? The first brother married and he died. First brother did not have children. The next line married the widow according to the levirate requirements and also died childless. Wow. So, first brother married a lady, brother died, second brother married the same lady, and second brother also died. Last of all, they said the widow herself died, right? In resurrection, they asked, when all the 7 brothers are to be raised, which brother will claim the widow as his wife, since all 7 had married her? So it is, remember a question was asked. I think I have told you this example. Somebody asked me the question was this. A family had 2 brothers, a parents have got 2 brothers, and the 2 brothers, one died at the age of 20, the other died at the age of 80. So in heaven, who will be eldest? Who will be eldest in heaven? That was the question that asked. Just like that, here is a question. Who is going to be this lady of, 7 brothers married this lady. So whose wife she is going to be? Now Jesus responded to their question with its implied mockery of the resurrection by reprimanding the Sadducees for not knowing the scriptures nor the power of God, thus being in error. When dead are raised, Jesus declared, they are similar to angels in that they do not marry. Implied in Jesus' statement is that dead are raised immortal, and thus there will be no death. Hence, no need to procreate to replace the dead. All right? So, addressing the issue of resurrection directly, Jesus asked the Sadducees whether they had read Moses' account of the burning bush in Exodus chapter 3, verse 6. A portion of the Old Testament. The Sadducees themselves accepted as authoritative. In that passage, Jesus pointed out, God identified himself to Moses by saying, I am the God of Abraham, and God of Isaac, and God of Jacob. This description Jesus declared meant that God is the God, not of the dead, but of the living. Contrary to Sadducees' mistaken understanding, death does not end it all. Does not end it all. God did not say to Moses that he was the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, but he is. That is what Jesus said. He is God of this man. The implication demanded by this description that all these patriarchs have died, but they are yet living. Furthermore, just as God is able to sustain them now, he will certainly raise them from the dead in fulfillment of his covenant promises to Abraham. So, how Jesus was answering, he's saying, don't think that by the death everything will end. You're wrong, because God is still God of Abraham. He was. That means these saints who died, these men who died, they're still living with God. That is the idea. Okay, so we looked at the second question. So first question was about tax. Third was about afterlife. The second was about afterlife. Now let's look at the third. All right, the third question. It is coming from scribes. Scribes. Who are scribes? They are the people who copy the law or rights, right? The scribes. Scribe had overheard the debate between Jesus and Sadducees and recognized that Jesus had answered well. So scribe really liked the answer of Jesus. With apparent sincerity, he asked Jesus with the command of Moses was the greatest. All right. So with the sincerity, he asked Jesus which command of Moses was the greatest. Okay, because this was a debate among the people at that time. There are a lot of commands. How many? The rabbis had identified 613 commandments. Right? Sometimes people have a problem. They think that there were only 10 commandments. No. In the Old Testament, there were 613 distinct statutes or commandments in the Mosaic law, and had divided these between greater and lesser commandments. So, scribe wants to know, hey, which is the greatest commandment? Tell me which is the greatest. So Jesus answered the question by citing the famous Shema passage. This is known as Shema. Shema means hear. Hebrews will call as Shema passage. What is that? Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God is one Lord. So this verse became known as Shema because the first word here in Hebrew is Shema, and was Jewish confession of faith. Remember, you know that Muslims prayer, Muslims prayer through the mosque. They would say something like this. You need to forgive me if I'm wrong. My pronunciation is something like La ilaha illallah, and the next one something like Muhammad Rasulullah. So the idea is there is only one God, that is Allah. One God, Allah. And second is this one, Muhammad is his prophet. Okay, Muhammad is his prophet. So this is like every time when they say this, this is their statement of faith, actually. Every Muslim has to declare the statement of faith, right, in their prayers. Just like that, Jewish people have a statement, like always they would use this verse. Which one? Deuteronomy chapter 6 verse 4. What does that says? Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God is one Lord. That is known as a Shema, which is a confession of faith recited by every pious Jew. Both morning and evening, that's what they do. Every day, morning and evening, they recite this verse. As necessary corollary to the Shema, Jesus added the following verse in Deuteronomy chapter 6 verse 5, directed one to love God with all of one's heart, soul, and mind. So Jesus said, so there's only one Lord, and therefore you love God with your heart, soul, and mind. Not stopping with this, however, Jesus went to cite Leviticus 18 verse 5. Jesus said two things: love your God. Then he came back to Leviticus and said, love your neighbor. Love your neighbor, right? You shall love your neighbor as yourself. Saying this was the second greatest. And then there was no other commandments greater than this. That's what Jesus wants to say. So the scribe responded by declaring his complete agreement with Jesus' answer, repeating in essence the two commandments. Jesus has cited and adding that these were valued by God far above all the burnt offering and sacrifices. Sensing scribe's sincerity and seeing that he had responded with the wisdom to what Jesus said, Jesus exhorted the scribe by saying that he was not far from the kingdom of God. If you really believe this, you're very closer to the kingdom. The rest of the Jewish leaders also recognized that Jesus had gotten the upper hand and no longer ventured to ask any questions. So, friends, what are we to look at here? 3 questions were asked, right? How many? 3 questions. And these 3 questions were being answered well. Answered well by Jesus, right? And they were not able to answer any more questions, because any question they ask, they are going to be in trouble, not Jesus Christ. Okay, I think we will stop for a break now, right? We will come back in the for the next class. Okay, that's what that's how much we are going to discuss today from gospel.